All right, there you go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to call to order at 9:01 a.m. the RTA Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee. Roll call, please.
Mayor Biassiata.
Here.
Ms. Welch.
Here.
Ms. McPherson. Ms. Pachetti.
Here.
And Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
You have 4 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have 4 agenda items today. State contract for the presentation of the competitive negotiated procurement purchase through the State of Ohio Cooperative Purchase Program to provide uniforms to shop employees for a period of 3 years with 2 one-year options. We'll have 2 speakers today, Brian Gibson, Supply Chain Contract Administrator, and Dawn Savancara, Contract Administrator. Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Biassiata, committee members, and members of the board. My name is Brian Gibson, and I am the Supply Chain Contract Administrator. I will be presenting the project overview along with Dawn Savancara, who will be presenting the procurement overview for the shop uniform rental maintenance project. The authority has an ongoing need to supply and maintain industrial-style work uniforms and outerwear for its approximately 750 employees at 12 locations. The scope of services include uniform rental, 11 sets of shirts and pants per employee, uniform laundering and maintenance performed weekly, uniform pickup and delivery performed weekly, lockers provided as needed. Further scope includes coat rental, 1 coat per employee, coveralls per employee job code. These are some examples of the garments that will be issued. I brought some examples, shirt, pants, and coat. This is the majority of the garments that will be issued. All garments will be in navy unless the job code requires otherwise. 2 versions of the coats, coveralls, and this is an example of employee identification and RTA branding. Now I will turn the presentation over to Dawn Savancara.
Good morning. RC Section 306.43H4 provides political subdivisions within the state of Ohio the opportunity to participate in contracts negotiated and executed by the State of Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program. The State of Ohio Cooperative Purchasing Program includes a contract with Cintas Corporation under the state term contract number RS 900118. This contract is a result of a competitive solicitation. For the past 5 years, Cintas has successfully provided shop uniform rental and maintenance services to both bargaining and non-bargaining employees. This sign outlines the financial details for the contract. The first 2 years maintain the same annual cost of $310,564.28 with no price increase in the second year. From the third year onward, there is the potential for a price increase capped at a maximum of 3.3% based on state pricing. It's important to note that these increases are not guaranteed, but represent the maximum allowable increase based on state pricing. The current pricing is $334,414.36, which is 7.13% higher than the first year of the new contract. The total contract from last year is $1,589,105.46, which is 1.67% lower than the new contract. Staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend awarding a contract to Cintas Corporation for shop uniform rental and maintenance in the amount not to exceed $941,941.46 for the base 3-year period, and in amounts not to exceed $331,399.73 and $342,335.92 for option years 1 and 2 respectively, for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,605,000 $677.11 for the 5-year period. Any questions?
Yes, thank you for including what the previous contract was and pointing out that what's before our committee is 1.6% lower than the total contract for the previous contract term. That probably raises the questions. I think it's important for the committee to understand the slight differences between this contract and the previous one.
Yes, one of the key differences is that the previous contract only included coats for roughly 150 employees. We are seeking to potentially outfit all 750 employees in coats.
You think it also relevant to talk about the maintenance, who's going to be responsible for the laundry, how that changed?
Yes, so the original contract, the contractor required that we do 2 coats per employee that were rotated, that were laundered. We were able to negotiate them to go down to 1 coat per employee, which obviously gives us some cost savings. It'll be self-laundered, but it'll still be covered under their insurance in full.
Thank you. Any questions from my committee? Board as a whole? Well, hearing none, I move to approve through committee the state contract for our uniform and uniform maintenance. Do I have a second?
Second, Welch.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. This contract is passed committee and will be on the next agenda for full board vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is for an IFB procurement, and today we'll have a presentation of this competitive procurement for the replacement of a new rail line car. Our speakers today will be Miles Varga, Supervisor of Power and Way, and Jonathan Lau, Program Contract Manager. Mr. Varga, the floor is yours.
Excuse me, Mayor, Chairperson. This is Flauncey Caver. If I could make an announcement before he presents, if that's okay with you.
Yes. Please approach the podium.
Chairperson Biassiata and members of the board, I'd like to take an opportunity, the individual here who's going to present, I want to take an opportunity to inform you about their team and what their team has been doing over the last week. So if I could ask Teresa and Jacob and Miles, if you come up here, please. So I wanted to introduce this team to you. This team is led by Teresa Muti. This is our Power and Way team. So within RTA, this is the electric company at RTA. And over the last week, surely as our community has been hit by historic storm and tornadoes, this is the group that worked hard internal to RTA to get the power back on so that we can offer train rides on the west side. So many of you know that we were down for the west side throughout most of the week. This team last week did a yeoman's job of cutting down trees, coming up with ways to reroute electricity so that we could offer train rides by Saturday morning out to West Park. And so I wanted you to be able to see who manages and maintains our infrastructure when there are power outages in a community. We are one of the largest single power users in the city, and so or in the region, and this is the group that maintains, distributes the power along our rail line and really works. And so they're standing here as the leaders of that team, but there's a team of people that were cutting trees all week and making sure that we can get those lines back up. The vehicle that they're going to explain is the key vehicle that is used in that type of work, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to show you who they are and the type of work that they do. If I could ask, they would give them a hand. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Doctor. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Mr. Viagra, floor is yours.
Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, or Chair Biassiata, members of the committee, members of the board. My name is Miles Varga. I'm the acting supervisor of traction power at our Power and Way district, and I'm here to discuss the technical portion of our line car procurement. A little history and background on our line car. The line car is actually our overhead catenary maintenance vehicle. The equipment we have now is designated as 032, but we just commonly refer to it as the line car. The vehicle we have now was purchased from Fuji Industries, a Japanese company, in 1977, and it is operated as our catenary maintenance vehicle for over 45 years at this point. During its time with us, it's had 2 engine rebuilds, the most recent being in 2017. It's had 2 roof rebuilds, the most recent being in 2023. It's been determined that a 3rd engine rebuild is going to be necessary. An AC generator rebuild and DC motor rebuild will be necessary as well, in addition to a reprofiling of the rail wheels on the vehicle. We're going to work our way around the vehicle, just explaining where we're at now. On the inside of the vehicle, it came to us with dual cable reel pay-in, pay-out system. However, that's been lost over time. We're down to a single manually operated reel system. We cannot pay out wire at tension. It's become very basic in operation. The workshop of the vehicle has very limited space for storage of tools, material, personal protective equipment. There's very limited seating for our personnel on their way to and from work areas. Onto the operator cabin, the controls for our operators are not very clearly labeled. They're not very intuitive. It can be difficult to remember what you need to do while operating if you need to make a split-second decision. There's limited feedback from the vehicle system, aside from speed, motor voltage, brake pipe pressure. We have no ability to ascertain coolant temperature, oil pressure currently. And the field of view for the operator is limited as well. You'll see that a little better in this slide. Your field of view is very limited vertically, and on the west cabin here, you can see the diesel engine for the vehicle sits on the right of your operator. It can be very loud, very challenging to hear radio communications while operating. Onto the roof of the platform where the bulk of the work gets done. We have the run of the roof currently, and if you need to get outside of the envelope of the vehicle, we have a swiveling work platform, which is essentially just a wood plank with a bearing in the center. We'll use that to swivel into position and then hold it in place with wood wheel chocks, and that's all done manually by our maintainers. This platform has no vertical lifting capability, meaning that the height of the vehicle is the height you can work at, give or take the height of our crews. And the vehicle currently lacks fall protection on the roof. The pantograph of the vehicle, we use that to simulate revenue vehicle operating conditions so we can tell how our OCS is going to interact with revenue car pantographs, whether that's our horizontal stagger or vertical height. Does not provide propulsion. It's isolated from the vehicle electrically. Onto the exhaust of the vehicle. The exhaust system currently puts out a lot of contaminants. It's loud. If you're working in a close quarter area like Tower City or the airport, you kick up a lot of dust and create some hazardous conditions for our crews. And then here's a shot of the underside of the engine. You can see it leaks oil pretty aggressively, and we're constantly working to clean and keep up with that. Just to overview the current state, the wheels of the vehicle have a thin flange, and we are unable at this time to repair that in-house. This one's very important. The vehicle as it sits now is too wide for revenue platforms, or will be too wide for revenue platforms when the platform extensions begin with the new rail cars arriving. Parts for the vehicle, due to its age and origin, are very difficult to procure, if not impossible. Again, there's no fall protection on the vehicle. We create hazardous conditions and tunnels with the exhaust. There's limited storage and limited seating for our crews. Which brings us to our proposed design. I will go into a bit more detail on some of the features of our hopeful new line car. So this procurement will facilitate the delivery of a new overhead catenary maintenance vehicle so we can inspect, maintain, repair, install overhead lines. The new car will be capable of video surveillance and monitoring of our OCS, meaning we can find service interrupting defects faster and more efficiently. We'll be capable of paying out multiple cables under tension rather than just a single conductor. will be capable of maintaining assets up to 25 feet in the air. That swiveling work platform will become a powered work platform that can lift, giving us greater reach and capability. And the new car will, of course, have fall protection. Couple more notes. We're going to be providing a vehicle that conforms to the new platform dynamic envelopes upon the completion of Project 66E1, which is the platform extension project to accompany the new rail cars. We'll have a better field of vision in the new car. We'll have more storage space for tools, equipment, PPE. And to address that exhaust issue, the new car will meet EPA Tier 4 diesel requirements. I'm going to hand the podium over to Jonathan Lally to speak about the procurement side.
Good morning. Jonathan Lally, Program Contract Manager. Invitation for bid for this project was issued on May the 6th, 2024. 6 parties viewed the solicitation. 2 of them submitted a bid. For this project, the lowest responsive and responsible bidder is Geismar North America Incorporated. There's a 0% DB participation on this project. The Geismar North America Incorporated has been in existence since 1974. They were under the name of Modern Track Machinery Incorporated in 2018. They changed their name to Geismar North America Incorporated. Currently, this firm is building the locomotive for the GCRTA. The staff requests that this committee recommend award to Geismar North America Incorporated for this project. The contract amount is not to exceed $5,165,257. Questions?
Well, thank you for the presentation. I think at the highest level, we all understand the need to replace the 55-year-old current line car. It's difficult to find the parts, and sometimes you're putting good money after bad if we're going to do a third engine rebuild. In addition, safety standards and EPA standards changed significantly over the last 55 years. So there's no doubt that this is needed, and the timing is good considering the investment we're making in the rail car system here. If we're not able to maintain our lines, it would damage the reputation of our new cars because the lines aren't ready to meet the demand of the new cars. So from that standpoint, slam dunk. It is a $5 million purchase. We did get one other bid. My question, were there any differences between the significant differences, or why this vendor over the other vendor? At a high level is fine.
Well, in the bid situation, this vendor was selected because they were the lowest bid by roughly $200,000. As far as technical, we can't really speak to that because we don't know what that other firm would have provided, so to speak, because of the bid situation.
All right. Questions for our presenters from my committee? Ms. Pachetti.
Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, I just noticed that the bid is 25% above the estimate, and I was just wondering about that. Like, is there anything that accounts for the difference that you are aware of?
All right, so the estimate was prepared by our Power and Way friends, Jacob and Company.
Jonathan, if you step a little closer to the microphone.
Sure. So the estimate was prepared by the Power and Way folks. Primarily the difference can be accounted for as far as market prices. The estimate was prepared some time ago, as in a year or so ago when they started thinking about this project, in which case the price obviously reflects current market prices. So I would say your inflation, your other market factors are a big part of that difference.
Hey, Jonathan, you got somebody behind you that's going to give you a little bit more detail as responsible for the estimate. Go right ahead.
Good morning. My name is Jacob Cable. I'm manager of Power and Way. To try and answer your question, we looked at other firms or agencies in the area that had recently purchased similar vehicles, or at least comparable to this vehicle. At the time in which I believe Pittsburgh was one of the most recent purchases, so we tried to base that, including inflation costs, to get somewhere in the ballpark realm of what we believed it would cost. So that is somewhat the reason for the difference, or the 25% markup, is what we thought it would cost is going to be a little bit more, and just based off of other factors where time frame the locomotive moved first. So what we originally had, just there were some differences in the timing in between it.
If I could add just for a moment, so I appreciate the question and the answer. Just wanted to also mention that we're also replacing things that are upwards of a generation or two in time. So anytime in my experience with other agencies as well as this one, we're either doing this for the first time or we're doing this in over 40 years, some cases 50, which is mind-boggling. So just the idea of being able to get within a 25% range is a little higher than normal margin. Typically, we try to stay between 10-15%, I think, from the engineering standpoint and also from the operational side. But for something of this magnitude, that we really don't have much of a framework to go for or go off of to base it, like was mentioned by Jacob, being able to look at other agencies such as Pittsburgh that are doing the same thing, get us within the ballpark, but there is a little bit of margin of error for the semantics. And then the market rate also for materials is wildly different than what it was even pre-COVID, but then in 40 years ago, it does make a significant difference. So I would ask for consideration of grace on the 25% for this particular.
Ms. Pachetti, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a quick comment, if that's okay. Yeah, I don't question that it's merited. It was more out of curiosity and for us to learn, like, if like performance could, like, are we getting maybe more innovative technology, or will this increase performance to any degree that we maybe weren't expecting because of like technology is changing so quickly or something like that? That's all. I just wanted to learn more about that. Thanks.
Sorry, if I may again.
Yeah.
So in terms of this vehicle, obviously the one that we currently have is closing in on 50 years of use. The new vehicle, there is no fat. We've trimmed everything we could off of it, but it is upgrading the technology significantly. So even just having a platform that we don't have to throw an A-frame ladder on top of to try and gain a few extra feet is going to be miles above what we currently are without adding anything that is unnecessary. The video surveillance system, we do try to use something similar right now, but it's via GoPros, which is nice. It gives you a good picture, but the surveillance system that we're looking at, while it's not necessarily ahead or unnecessary, it's going to give us that opportunity to better inspect our system. We're going to have video from that system that can be reviewed at a later date or shared with other individuals, even engineering. So it's just improvements on what we currently have, but bring it to a 20th century usefulness.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Let's go to the committee first. Anyone? Ms. Wells, did you have something?
I did. I just want to first start by thanking the entire team. You know, Cleveland doesn't normally have natural disasters, but when we do, obviously RTA is one of the first stops for people to understand, are we up and running? So I just want to thank everybody for their service in getting us back up and running. I just had a quick question. Is this the only rail line car that we currently have, or do we have more than one like this that helps with maintenance?
As far as overhead catenary maintenance, we have 2 high rail trucks that we use, but this is our workhorse, this line car.
Okay, because I was wondering what was the plan around maybe having the other rail line cards updated, and if that was going to be falling into this budget, or maybe this was something you were thinking a little bit later down the line.
Chair Biassiata, Ms. Welsh, members of the board, I'm Fonseca, the Chief Operating Officer. So this particular piece of work vehicle is created for the line, but this board did approve a purchase of our locomotive, and so we have another piece of equipment that should be here by the end of this year, and it is our new locomotive. It has attachments to carry ballast, to carry lines, so just call it a railroad tow truck. And so this group has all of the work equipment. The majority of it is diesel powered, right, because they have to work when the rail system is down and there's no electricity. And so they have probably 10 or 15 pieces of work equipment that all create a part of how we maintain the system. So from the overhead, we have the line car, we have the locomotive, we have tie inserter machines. So if you've ever seen these really, really long, skinny trains that actually places the ties in and move the ballast around. And so maybe one day we'll come to the board and share with you the various pieces of equipment that maintain the rail infrastructure. But it's a true railroad that's the type of equipment they have.
Thank you.
Mr. Sleesman?
Did I just, the locomotive you just described is the one being built by Geismar?
Yes.
Thanks. I was going to ask about it, but you just described it, so thanks.
Yes, and it's due here the end of this year, right? November.
Reverend?
Actually, Dr. Caver was added to what I wanted to ask, because I remember when we did that major purchase that these new cars had, many of the features that you were talking about today would be already on those cars. Did I miss a picture of the new vehicle?
Of the new, no, we don't have the new picture of this vehicle yet. We only have the schematic.
And when will that come?
When will they give us the picture?
Good morning. So that probably will be available once we get the notice to proceed and start actually making sure that the specs are in line with what we want. So we don't really have a actual picture of what we are going to get just yet, but that will come, and we can forward that.
You follow up, Reverend? You good?
That seems a little awkward that we're not getting a picture of it before we complete the purchase.
Yeah, Reverend, we'll have it before we complete the purchase, and so there's surely a prototype of what it will broadly look like, but each vehicle is maintained differently, and so because it's a bid, we actually told the vendors exactly what we want in all of these items. So while there are different types of line cars, ours has to be a certain width, a certain length, a certain height based upon our OCS. And so we will have a picture before we move forward. But what happens is they have to add all of these technical components that are unique to our system before we get the final design of the vehicle. So there's a designing component because each railroad has very different components. Think of width of the track, length of the vehicle, and things.
You know, you've done such an excellent job in showing visibility, the room for the operators. It's a good presentation. I was just thinking that to fulfill the presentation, to see exactly what the car is going to look, but you've told me that's coming.
It's coming.
All right.
Mayor Weiss, did you have something? Mayor Kumar, floor is yours.
Just one question. You provided a great overview. Obviously, this item, this vehicle is needed for our fleet to continue maintenance. Just more of a process question, maybe for procurement/finance. The fact that it's over 20%, that does not present any challenges. I know from a municipal side, over 20%, sometimes we have to look at that process and take a step back. I just wanted to ensure from an RTA perspective that that doesn't cause us any issues.
No, it actually does not cause issues. The only time that would cause issues for us is if it's a construction project situation. Outside of that, everything else is best practice for the organization.
Thank you.
If I can also ask, thanks, Jonathan. If I can also ask Raj to be able to weigh in from finance.
Thanks, Cindy. I was just chiming in. Jonathan, thank you very much for providing that input. Mayor Kumar, I think what Jonathan alluded to and what you were talking about is when the estimate is different by about 10% of the construction, that is a larger concern. We had contingency funds. We had planned for this purpose, so I think budgetary-wise, there should not be any concerns.
Any further questions or comments on this agenda item?
Thank you for the presentation. Just two questions. One was just the timeline. If moved forward, what would be the timeline for the replacement of the line car?
The new vehicle should be completed June of 2026.
That aligns with the rail replacement
Yes, sir.
timeline. And I think just maybe a technical question, of course, understanding the role of the diesel engine when the power's out, see that the catenary would be powered on the pantograph. Would there be instances where it would actually be powered by the catenary line, or would that just be for testing purposes only as you're getting the lines back, on?
That's for testing purposes only. That's just to get a reference of how the revenue vehicles will interact with our OCS.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Any further questions? I don't know why I missed you. I'm sorry. Right next to me. It's like the forest for the tree kind of thing. I move to approve the contract for the new rail line car. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to move on to our third agenda item, which is our annual DBE goal for 2025 to 2027. Carl Kirkland, our Director of Office Business Development, will be our presenter. Good morning, Mr. Kirkland. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor Biasiato, members of the committee, members of the board. I am Carl Kirkland, the Director of Office of Business Development, here to present the proposed federal fiscal year 2025-2026 DBE program goal. The federal requirements establish an overall goal on a triennial basis to adequately reflect the opportunity for DBEs to participate on federal assisted procurements that are expected to be made during the federal fiscal years 2025, 26, and 27 periods. We have, before a goal is actually set, we have to establish a timetable. And with the timetable, these are the events that are being held. You have to hold a committee advisory meeting. You have to have it published and propose the DB goal. You have to submit it to the committee for presentation for review, seek for board approval, and then submit for proposed goal to the Federal Transit Administration, which is due September 30th. A community advisory group is formed. These are our community partners that we submit and we have seek advice from when we're partnering with, regarding outreach for small business participation, when a goal is actually, before a goal is actually set. These are the community agencies and also DBEs to participate to give their advice and input in on the goal and information that's before the information is submitted to FTA. According to the federal regulations, the DB program seeks to achieve the following objectives. One is to ensure non-discrimination on any award, administration of DOT-assisted contracts. Our office is to create a level playing field in which DBs can compete fairly on DOT-assisted contracts. And then our office help remove the barriers for DBs to participate on contracts. And then we assist them in making sure that they are ready, willing, and able to participate on any of the GCRT contracts. There's an overall goal calculation. Before a goal calculation is taking place, the approved capital improvement plan that took place in May 2024, the capital improvement plan was reviewed, and in the review, we established a base figure of available DBEs that are ready, willing, and able to participate. And then we adjust the base figure to take into account authorities' specific factors such as the number, types, and dollar value of contracts, and the DB participation achieved during the past 3 years. Proposed federal fiscal year overall DB goal based on the factors are the consider and calculation of the DBE goal, proposed federal fiscal year 2025, 26, and 27 DB goal is 20.21%. The means to achieve the goal, the race conscious, is 17.01%, and that is through specific contract, specific goals. And then the race neutral is 3.2%, which the DB participation where firm is, we consider firm as a prime contractor or firm is exceeding the goal that has been assigned on individual contracts. The overall DB goal may be adjusted during the 3-year period to reflect chances, circumstances, generally in the marketplace, specifically readily. If there's a change within, like there's a change within the contract or the specifications, we have the opportunity to submit a proposal review to the FTA for review and approval. Staff recommends the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the approval of the triannual DB goal of 20.21%. At this time, I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions from my committee? We got Ms. Pachetti, fire away.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Could you share a little bit about how this compares to past years?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
In past years, the goal average, we were coming out of the pandemic, so there was an average of $5 million that had taken place for the past 3 years. Currently, right now, we try to make sure that when we look at the capital improvement plan, we make sure that the contracts are ready, willing, and able for participants, for our DBs to participate in on. So with that, we hope that specific contract goals, we don't create a shortfall analysis each year where we want to make sure that we are meeting the goal each year because we have, FTA requires us to do such.
Thank you. So to be clear, the 20% goal for the next 3 years is greater than, less than past 3-year goals, or do we not have to?
It's less than. The previous goal was 21.5%. That was previous year. In the year before that, it was 22.5%. And how that is calculated is reviewing the capital improvement plan. And that is according to previous moving ahead, taking a look at, since we have the rail car projects taking place, there aren't that many contract goals that can be set on specific, and that's where we're going into specific contracts, individuals. So with that, all of that is taken in factor of the 20.21% goal.
Thank you. And if I could, one more
please,
follow-up.
run it out.
How does the 20% compare to other agencies of similar size or similar population?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, since we are heavy rail and light rail, we can't compare to other agencies because we're comparing apples to oranges. We are the largest agency pertaining to within this area. I did look at CODA, and part of that was when I went and trained the executive team on the percentages on how to actually set a goal on the procurements. Heavy rail and light rail was not taking a factor into that. So we are, I would say, the majority and leading factor into this.
Thank you. It's a very important issue, and I just want to understand it better. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Welch, did you have something? Mr. Sleesman?
Not so much about this and the 20%, which I think is great. A broader question would be, since this is based on ready, willing, and able, maybe if we could just have a few comments or descriptions about anything we're doing in the broader workforce ecosystem to help more contractors be ready, willing, and able, or at least be in touch with those who might be relevant to our work but aren't necessarily as familiar, but could get there if they just knew a little bit more?
Well, when partnering with a lot of other agencies in the community, we do a lot of outreach, and part of the outreach is where we identify companies that are small business owners so they can be ready, willing, and able to participate. In doing that, we host Learn to Do Business. We work heavily with procurement, and we work heavily with engineering, according to the specifications that's on individual contracts. So we position small business owners to be ready, willing, and able to participate. As a subcontractor, our main goal is for them to be a prime contractor. And our job is to introduce them to the community, and also GCRTA, our engineering, we sit on all the evaluation meetings, we sit on all the kickoff meetings, and we give our input in on that just so we can have, there's a voice there for our small business owners.
Great, thanks. I think it's important for folks out there to know that we're trying to build a bigger pie as well as make sure that the pieces go
yes.
In the best place.
And Carl, if I may, Mr. Sleesman, I think in addition to complying with the federal requirements, obviously that's what we're doing. The Office of Business and Development is committed to the DBE program. I mean, we conduct several outreach programs throughout the year to grow the population, as you will. We remain one of 2 DBE certifying agencies in the state of Ohio being the second one. So I think the commitment to the program is there.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board? Mayor Weiss?
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question on the mechanics, because it's and how the math actually works. When we get contracts for approval, and we will see a DBE participation goal, those numbers, as I recall, are kind of all over the place depending on the contract. So is the 20.21, is that the average of all contracts, and so we're up and down, or is that sort of a benchmark by which we just measure?
That is actually that comes from the medium achievement from the past 3 years. So I take into account 2021, 22, and 23 contracting for the past 3 years, and there's a calculation that takes place. So from that, there's the medium achievement. And there's a calculation that takes place, and I can review that with you privately if you would like to do that and go over all of the full calculations with that. But that the past 3 years is taken in count to derive up to 20.21%.
So when you add up all the contracts?
What happened? Yeah, there's a contract, right? The actual DB contract from the past 3 years, which is the 21.8%, which is a medium achievement. From that medium achievement, you receive the proposed. So you take the previous 21.5% and the availability study, and that comes up where you get 15.72%, which is the estimated DB availability based on review of planned RTA contract opportunities. From that point on, you receive a 37.22% divided by the 2, and you receive 18.61%, and that is adjusted based. That is where you take the adjusted base and you review that with the previous contract goals, 21, 22, and 23%, which gives you a medium achievement, which you take the 18.61% adjusted base figure with the 21.80%, and you divide it by 2, which gets you the 21% DB overall goal.
Okay. Not quite sure I followed all your math.
I know,
but
I
will trust it.
I would love to sit down with you and everyone to go over that. It's very time consuming, but the percentages amount are based from the previous 3 years, and also you look at the availability of DBEs. What was actually contracted out previously, and you take all that into factor in the final calculations.
Okay, thank you.
If I may just for a moment. So we're kind of smirking through the answer because we had a debate on whether or not to show all of the math. And I vetoed to not do that because of the reason you just said. So what I would suggest is that if DBE and finance can work together, we already have it kind of listed out to be able to provide that information via Teresa back to the board between now and hopefully the next meeting, where we could work toward an approval so that we can counsel folks individually if needed to work through the math, but we can send an informational memo with it outlined in the actual calculation so you can see the homework behind it. Because I think for this purpose, it's a little bit daunting to look at all of the factoids that go into it, but there is a story behind the numbers, and we're more than happy to explain it to you between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Just because as we see these contracts and the number goes up and down,
Yeah.
it's sometimes hard to figure out.
Yeah.
I take it for being accurate, but I just didn't know how it's.
It's daunting for the best of us and the worst of us, but we have considered that calculation and gone over it so many times that I think it's a refined process that actually is also dictated by the market on some of the projects that you'll see.
Yes.
When you get into the rail and the capital budget that Carl's talking about. It fluctuates from year to year based on what availability is actually out there for the sub-community for DBEs. And to Trustee Sleesman's point, that's why it's so important for us to kind of get out there and get in front of being able to increase the pool of DBEs that actually could serve as subs and primes and do the actual work. Because when we get into a 5-year plan where the majority of the work is very specialized, that number shrinks. And so we want to make sure that we can actually work toward that 20%, which is a little tough in the market that we have. But to the point that was made, we can definitely provide that information with all the arithmetic. And then maybe what we want to do, Carl and Raj, is highlight the portions that actually get us directly to the 20%. And be able to explain it that way so that we can talk through it.
Yes, yes, I have it available if you want to see it now after the meeting. So,
I'm going to ask.
Like our CEO stated, we will send you a copy.
We'll send it out,
Yes,
and then we'll take individual appointments to go through it. I think that's the best way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Mr. Love?
Thank you for the presentation. I think just a clarifying question first. When we talk about DBE, is that inclusive of both, minority and women-owned businesses for the FDA's definition?
Yes, it is. And when we say women-owned, Caucasian women is considered DBEs within this program as well. So when we say, and that's all women.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I think the other question maybe that could be carried into the follow-up would just be, are we finding that there's a revisitation or revision of the goal over that 3-year period? Is it an occurrence to take that back to FTA for revision, or are we finding that over the 3-year period we're generally staying with the determined goal?
What's being submitted is we are being, I would say, an average that's going to be submitted and of availability. And in reviewing the capital project, the capital improvement plan, it gave me a real broader picture of what's readily available. And that information is actually going to be submitted in a documentation of the calculations that Ms. Birdsong and Terry had mentioned. We can submit to FTA, but it gives you a better overview of how we derived of getting the annual goal.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Reverend.
I also want to compliment the Kirkland, because not only does he have to go out and find the people who qualify, but unfortunately in the last few years, the number of companies that are in this quadrant have closed. And that's a real tragedy. And so I do want to compliment you and your department for what you're doing.
Thank you.
At the same time, we have to do our best to try to encourage some of these companies to both exist and to resurrect.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carl.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
One thing I don't like about him, he dresses better than I do. So.
All right. I move to approve the annual DBE goal for 25 to 27 out of this committee. Do I have a second?
Second, Welch.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Moving on to our fourth item now. We have an update to our microtransit program. And Director Feck will be our presenter today. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. It's always hard to be last, but for this committee. Today I'm going to give you an update on our microtransit program and tell you what it is, where we are with it now, and where we'll be in the future. Just because I'm up here presenting, I do want to let you know that there's a team behind me. Jose Feliciano is still here. He helps with this. We have Joel Freilich, our Director of Service Management, who's been helping, as well as Dr. Natoya Walker-Miner, who's also been very helpful with the marketing department. So there is a team behind this that really helps with it. So you all know about the job access, the mobility divide, and getting people to work where they need to go. It is an issue in this area. It's an issue all over the country. What you see now is, the central Cleveland and one of our maps that shows that we go throughout the county and we have a very robust network of transit. But sometimes we don't get quite to the door. Sometimes there's a half mile or a mile down a dark industrial park that we don't get to. This is our job hubs within the county. You can see, again, our network serves all of them. But again, we might not get there at 3 a.m. when they need to be on service or be there at the work or on the weekend. So this is an issue that came up during the pandemic, as well as throughout as we've been developing our industrial core, that we need to get there. So what we did at RTA is we spent a year researching how to do this. We looked at transit programs all over the country, all over the state. And what we came up with is we want a short-term program. We want to test it. We want to evaluate it. We want to look to see what type of program can work. And we want it to be first, last mile, to connect to our network so our customers are getting them to where they need to be to work. We need them. The RFP suggested or wanted them to be at an RTA facility, rail station, bus stop, transit center, wherever. Take them from an RTA facility to their work site and then return them after the shift, whenever it was. We needed to be within Cuyahoga County because we serve Cuyahoga County. And it's a flexible. If it's midnight, if it's 3 a.m., whatever, it's a Sunday, Monday, whatever, the route is entirely flexible. And we have a memorandum of understanding with the union. In fact, it was just updated that says we can't replace RTA service with the service. It cannot extend beyond 18 months. And it was recently extended thanks to the work of our union and our negotiations. So in order to fund this, we got we have two contracts, but we had a grant for $600,000 from OTP2 funds from ODOT. We required a 50-50 match, which is very different, where the contractor had to come up with 50%. We would give them 50%, and they would find it. We have two contracts, both with Share Mobility, one in Solon and one in the Arizona, and you can see when those contracts were let. Solon, the Solon Connector, this is the Southgate Transit Center. This is where we started. We started the Southgate Transit Center. It's a huge hub for us. Bus hub, Portage County comes in, Akron Metro comes in, all to that hub, and it's a really nice area for transit. And to get them to Solon, we had two very popular employers, Raptite and Amazon. This is a celebration of when we cut the ribbon and the vehicle that was used and is used for that service. Looking at the ridership, you can see, I'm sorry if you can't read all of this, but you can see it's stagnated. We had at 1.6 employers, and we never really got beyond 100 people per week taking this. We settled on like 17. So after analyzing this, and thanks to Joel for analyzing it, we had 3 employers. We're down to 2 now, and 5 work sites. One of the employers has 3 work sites. This is the number of vehicle hours we provided. And many of those employers never sent any employees on this service, although they signed up. And this is what we've paid. We've actually now spent most of the contract right now. All of the work sites, though, were within a half a mile of a bus stop. So it's not difficult for people to ride them. And it's not a mile. So basically, ridership stagnated. The number of employers have dropped off. We've extended the contract now for 3 months through August 31st, but we want to cease operations on August 31st. We've been communicating closely with the staff, the economic development director, and the mayor, and they're fine with that. We have talked to both employers and all the employees, and we're offering them NOACA's van pool to assist the customers in using the service, and that communication is already helping. We don't want to strand anybody, so the van pool is a really good option for them. And we've applied for grants to continue to operate this program in the future, And then to also study, look at the parameters. It was a very wide open RFP. You tell us we did not have a zone, we did not have demand response. It was all based on what the market said. So we want to look at that. Is that a good option? Well, how can we make this better? And we're willing and we're working right now to tweak that. So that's Solon. We also have one that is in Arizona, and that just began in October. You can see it's a very wide area. You can see there's 100,000 jobs, 7 cities, NASA, the airport, lots and lots of places where we can work. And there's a lot of industrial parks in that area that are dark and dank, and it's hard to get to with over a mile. You can see, given the ridership, it is improving. It is getting, although we only have 2 right now, we've got the Arizona Alliance, a contract with Share to be boots on the ground for them and to really go forward with this. We have 4 red line stations in this area and lots of very heavy bus lines. The service, again, began in October, so it's not all that old. And there are a lot of work destinations that are well with over a mile from a stop, and they are dark, without sidewalks. And we believe this is a really good market for first last mile service. We know there's a lot of energy going into the Arizona to make it a world-class destination for employers and employees. So we're continuing. We've got marketing support that we're getting, and I know that the outreach activities we've really increased. We had job fairs. We invited everybody to a program breakfast out in the corridor for Arizona. You can see the lunch and learns that have been active, email blasts from Share Mobility. The summary, and I know that India wants to also talk about what she's done and what we've done as an agency. We're evaluating to tweak it. One of the problems was there were 5 or 6 or 7 different cost scenarios of what it would cost, and we were trying to roll it out, demonstrate it, but a lot of companies got very confused. We've settled on a uniform cost pricing model for employers, because remember, employers are paying for some of that. We're working with Share. One of the problems is they've changed their management a few times during these contracts, so India has worked with the CEO of Share to make sure that they have boots on the ground besides our department, our marketing, as well as our the Arizona Alliance and the City of Solon was working. We're reviewing, Lorraine County now has a microtransit program. They just started in July, working very closely to keep an eye on that. How is that working? What's working? How can we make those improvements to our program to make it work better? We're increasing outreach activities. We had a call yesterday where we're going to be dealing with the Ohio for Disabilities Association to look at their marketing efforts. We're going to job fairs, both for us and for to help employers to use this program. We surveyed employees and employers, and we found that there's a marginal, they like it, but they would be able to get to work without it. So that's where we are today. We're continuing to proceed, and we're really looking forward to getting a program that works well, that we can provide people getting to work easily wherever they work within our county. So with that, I'll take any questions. I know, Indy, you wanted to add.
Sure. I'll wait for defer if there's any questions, and then I can follow up.
Any questions from the committee? Ms. Pichetti.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear an update on this program. I'm very interested in microtransit, and I just want to thank you for acknowledging that there are challenges and have been challenges. It's easy to just say, oh, we piloted this program, got this grant, and it's working great. There's some challenges and kind of gloss over those, but it's clear that you take them very seriously and are working to tweak them and make them better. So thank you. And then I did have a question on, I'm interested, I don't know a lot about NOACA's van pool program, so I'm curious how that is similar or different than this program and what we all could learn from each other about what works and what doesn't.
Well, the difference is an employee takes a van and they take people, they pick them up, and they take them to work, and then they take the van home. We've asked NOACA to tweak that because right now they get on a van that Share provides, they get to work, and they come back. So we're looking to see how that can be tweaked. Perhaps Raptite or an employer can drive the van and keep it at Raptite and then just pick them at Southgate. There's a lot of subsidies for the van pool that NOACA is running. So that's the main difference. They have a van, they have like 8 people that, if they didn't have the subsidy, would pay into that van and provide transportation to and from the work site. So this is a little different. NOACA's working with us to make it more like the program that we had.
And if I could, to what extent are either program kind of on-demand service? So somebody needs a ride and they kind of...
They're not on demand.
They're not on
They're
demand.
subscribed. So Wrap Tight, says, I have 15 employees. Their names are Joe Jones. Joe Jones needs to be at Wrap Tight on Solon Road at 7 a.m. Monday through Friday. If he doesn't need to, he calls and says, I don't need that ride. If somebody has to be there at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, they know to pick them up and take them. So it's not an on-demand. That's one thing we want to look at. And another thing we want to look at is zone-based. Aerozone is sort of zone-based because we've got those 4 centers. But if it's a zone-based and you can call and it can be on-demand, we're working through that. And how also we want to work through how we can bring this into our house rather than having a contractor.
Lots more questions, but I'm going to leave it there. I think this is helpful in just understanding it better. Thanks.
Further committee questions? Board?
Hi, so for clarification, so the frequency of the transportation is based on the schedule of each individual employee that utilizes the service?
Yes.
Okay, so so Anastasia needs to get to work at 7, I get off at 4, an emergency comes up, there isn't a mechanism for contact to be made with the service to take me back.
There is, in the Aerozone, Share has a contract with Uber so that if you need a ride, they can give you a voucher and a number and you can get an Uber home or wherever you need to go.
Got it, okay. And then second question, can you give a little bit more detail on the survey results, particularly from the employees' perspective?
The employees, they like the service because it's more convenient. However, when we asked the question, if this wasn't, could you get to work? They said, certainly. How did you get to work before? They took transit and walked. How do you get to work now? We took transit and we take this shuttle. Would you be able to get to work? Yes. It would just be a little more inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I would not have this job if I didn't have this service. And for first last mile, I don't know that you would expect that, but you would expect, and for the employer, is your fill rate better? Is your production better? Marginally.
Okay, and forgive me if this was included, but what are the types of industries that we're serving in these areas?
They're mostly light industries, so Wrap Tight puts packages together, like they put all the plastic on, and then Amazon, you know what they do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The industries that are in the Aerozone, they're light industry. It's not been any of the high-tech stuff. And Polaris is a developmental center, so some of them are fast food, some of them are grocery stores.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elder. Anybody further? Mayor, fire away.
Just one question. Does the grant permit us to kind of go a different direction if we wanted to, or are we kind of limited with this model that we're working off of? I mean, I'm just thinking if it isn't meeting our expectations and there's a different model to look at, are we still able to use those funds to try a different approach?
The funding isn't the problem. What we have contracts that have requirements. I know Raj and procurement would tell me, and the requirements of that contract, we can't change it cardinally, or else we need a new contract. So we have to, within the limits of our RFP, we have to monitor and implement it per the contract. That doesn't mean we can't change it in the next contract, and that's sort of where we're going.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If I can just for a moment, just to clarify, and I think we had a couple other questions. I saw people doing this. When you say modify the contract, can you specify, is that the contract with Share Mobility?
Yes.
Okay. So that's with the current provider.
We put an RFP out and we got competition. And
yeah. So just to clarify and keep me on the straight and narrow, we can change the program. It's not a byproduct of the funding, of the grant funding. It's a byproduct of our own doing. So we have to stay within the contract confines that we already have written with Share Mobility, which is our third-party provider. They're the manager for this program, and there are certain responsibilities that are outlined in that contract. However, that's coming to a close. What date?
The end of this month.
Okay.
31st.
And so, well, I guess I'll go ahead and give my comment. So I actually have a follow-up meeting with the CEO of Share Mobility tomorrow. I had asked to be able to elevate it to that level because, as Mary Beth mentioned, they've changed hands a couple times. If you remember, Ryan McManus was the young man who came here from Columbus maybe a year or so ago and gave presentation. He's no longer at the helm of that organization, but is somewhere within the body of it. And so we also have, there's a team behind them, right? And so the new gentleman, Aaron Shockett, who is the CEO for the company, we had a very transparent conversation. I said, you've got to have more boots on the ground. We've got to have a physical presence here in Cleveland to be able to help us, to be able to kind of push this out into the communities. I did attend, along with several of the events that were out in participation for Soul and Aerozone. Part of what I heard also, not just from the employees, but really from the business owners, were that because you have a lot of these smaller, sometimes even mom and pop based, right, respectfully, organizations that are light industry, the HR manager is the shop foreman, is the janitor, is the accountant. And so you really are running really lean on management and also really lean on time and understanding of how the program works. So part of the brainstorming that myself, Mr. Shockett, and our team is looking at doing, because we're coming up on the end of this contract, is being able to say, let's involve our HR division, for example, in working with their HR divisions to be able to work through how this benefit works, because sometimes it's turned off before you even start. And then someone will say, okay, I don't have time for this, but the employees still need the service. And usually it comes up in the wintertime when that ease of walk that Mary Beth was talking about isn't so easy. And then you end up with people who actually are not able to get to work. So there's a lot we could report on. I do think what we need to do is come back to you in Q4 to be able to explain the differences of the new contract, because that will be able to kind of get to some of the issues that we had with Solon. I did have a very great conversation, very encouraging, with Mayor Kraus in Solon as well. And we talked through some of the things that would make it better. They're very encouraged to not have this be the only pilot or the only program. They understand that they're kind of the inaugural program, so we appreciate them for that. But they're also learning as well. And I think, if I can be honest and transparent, they're learning what industries really need it and what industries actually have other means to have folks actually come in their front door. So this may not have been a problem for the 6 companies that we found, but there may be other areas. And one last thing, I am working to be able to have conversations. I've had one as of last week with Amazon, AWS, excuse my lack of knowledge about all the acronyms, but it's the worldwide for Amazon, and we want to look at it globally, or you know, on a larger, not one by one, onesie twosie. So we'll be working at connecting Mary Beth and Joel and team with Amazon. They have a regional manager here, and we'll look at all 200 sites to be able to see if there's any there to work through microtransit on a larger scale, so that we're not trying to target one retail center at a time. Hopefully that makes sense.
Any further questions or comments on microtransit? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have new business for this committee at this time? Fantastic. I move to adjourn the Organizational Services Performance Monitoring Committee at 10:10 a.m. Do I have a second?
Second, Welch.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the RTA Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kumar.
Here.
Ms. Welch.
Here.
Ms. Pachetti.
Here.
Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
And Mayor Weiss.
Here.
You have 5 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Today we have one item on our agenda. It's the Casualty Insurance Program, and it's to provide an update on the authority's Casualty Insurance Program. And we have with us Judy Lincoln, Director of Risk Management, and I'll let you make some other introductions after that, Judy.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Chairman Kumar, members of the committee, and members of the board. I'm Judy Lincoln. I'm here to give you an overview of our casualty insurance program renewal, which takes place on September 1st of this year. I would like to introduce Barbara Goodwin, who is a Senior Vice President with USI. They are our casualty insurance broker in the United States. I would also like to introduce Darwin Rutledge, who is sitting back there, who is the President and CEO of Rutledge Insurance Group, who is our DBE broker and partner on this program. And first, I'm going to give you some background on the insurance program itself. We maintain a casualty insurance program for protection of assets against catastrophic loss. There are actually 3 insurance policies involved in this program. The first is the excess liability policy, which contains general, rail, and auto liability coverages. There's a $95 million per occurrence limit on that program. It sits over a $5 million self-insured retention, or deductible, if you will. The second program is excess workers' compensation, which is a $10 million coverage limit and a $750,000 self-insured retention. Lastly, public officials liability and employment practices liability, a $5 million coverage limit with a $250,000 SIR for public officials and a $500,000 SIR for the employment practices piece. Mayor Kumar asked me to mention that we also have a separate cyber liability insurance program that does not renew as part of this program, but is entirely separate, renews in February. But just because that is a topic of interest to people, so he wanted me to mention that we do carry cyber liability, and that renewed in February. That program carries a $5 million coverage limit and a $50,000 SIR. So I was asked to share how we go about procuring this insurance. So the excess liability markets must be accessed via an insurance broker. There are no direct writers of these coverages, and therefore RTA conducts an RFP process to select and retain a casualty insurance broker. The broker is selected based on their expertise in the commercial insurance market, including the industry sector, which is rail, transit, and transportation. Together, RTA and the broker approach insurance markets with a submission. This is a substantial document that contains extensive information about RTA's operations and exposures, our loss experience, our safety culture, and all that is used to negotiate the best partnerships with the markets and the best program for RTA in terms of coverage and pricing. RTA's executive management and risk management also do meet face-to-face with a lot of our underwriters. We conduct some meetings individually with, for instance, our lead underwriter on the excess liability program is a London syndicate called Aegis. We do an individual meeting with them. We do an individual meeting with Gemini, who is another big participant, a US participant. Then we do a big group presentation for a whole bunch of underwriters, some of them who are current participants and some of them who are just potentially interested markets in participating in our program. So we have in past years actually gone to London and met face-to-face with underwriters. We've met with some US underwriters here in the US, but we've been doing them virtually for the last couple of years. Those meetings are very productive, and they cover all those topics that I just laid out there that are contained in the underwriting submission. Dr. Kaver is a very heavy participant in these presentations. He is very much the leader of the presentation. I tack on at the very end with a little presentation about how good our loss experience is. And before I have Dr. Kaver say a few words, I was asked to just give you an example of the kind of information that I give them about our loss experience. And so one thing is that we got the cameras, both the Apollo and the Lytix cameras in 2014. So in 2014, we had 1,243 events that resulted in claims. 2 years later, that was down to 772. 2 years after that, it was down to 614. These last 5 years, it's running about 500. I mean, so we literally, in 10 years, have gone from 1,200 to 500 events that resulted in claims, and that's how effective those cameras have been. So as you'll hear throughout this presentation, we work really hard to have good relationships with the underwriters And I'm going to let Dr. Kaver share a little bit.
Thank you, Judy, Mayor Kumar, members of the board, and for the members of the public. I'm Fonse Kaver, the Chief Operating Officer. And so I wanted to just provide for you just sort of an update and description of what we do in the executive management portion of this. And so, as Judy mentioned, we can only access this insurance through a broker. The broker and those 8 insurance agencies that are interested want to know about our business. And I give a presentation on behalf of our RTA team that discusses our financial position, which is strong. It discusses our safety culture and our safety management system. When we're looking for this type of insurance, the insurance company wants to be assured that we have a culture that prioritizes safety, and that's both safety and security as well as safety on our vehicles. I get the opportunity to discuss the types of technology that we've invested in. Judy mentioned our Lytics Drive Cam, which is a behavior monitoring system on our buses that allows us to attack and engage employees in coaching before there is a collision. And this system is one of the best in the nation. Many of the carriers on over-the-road transportation use these items, and it's been a really well received. As Judy said, we went from about 1,200 to 500 incidents, and a part of what we've been doing is actually taking risky behavior out of the driving patterns. What we know through our safety culture and Janet's team, I don't see our safety director here, is that accidents are actually fairly infrequent, but behaviors are frequent. And so we manage and try to change behavior before an accident actually comes. We also made an investment several years back to ensure that every one of our vehicles has multiple cameras. Depending on the vehicle, it's about 8 to 10 cameras. Those cameras help us in our claims history because we can actually see the incident. We can actually engage other claims agents and attorneys in a way that is truthful, and we're able to address items there. And so on this team, I get to lead that presentation to our London underwriters, our Bermuda underwriters, and I'm really excited to be a part of that team to tell our story, and it has yielded very good results from our underwriters and in our pricing. So just wanted to share with you that process.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Fonse. Okay, moving on. Just to give a brief explanation of what the other 2 insurance policies cover. The public officials and employment practices liability provides liability protection to board members, directors, and officers, as well as GCRTA, the entity itself, for alleged wrongful acts by directors and officers, committee members, or employees. The policy also provides insurance coverage for employment practices claims, for example, sexual harassment claims, discrimination, or wrongful termination claims. The excess workers' compensation policy provides catastrophic insurance coverage excess of the $750,000 self-insured retention per occurrence. And I believe this is where I am going to turn it over to Barbara Goodwin to share with you some observations about the state of the insurance market this year and what we were dealing with in negotiating our renewal.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning. So the insurance market actually does still remain challenging for all classes, especially in casualty, and a lot of the reasons are stated there. But the impact of nuclear verdicts, and what is a nuclear verdict? It's actually anything considered over 10 million. And unfortunately, if you look back in 2010, average cases, large cases were 2.3 million. Now they're closer to 32 million. So there's been a real change, and the insurance industry has been impacted by that. One of the insurance markets carriers on your program, Apollo, cited that they have 10 claims currently, each with a $100 million demand. So they recognize that these nuclear verdicts are real and they're happening. As a result of that is that a lot of these markets feel that they're not getting enough premium, especially on the high excess layers, because the claims have gotten so big. So a few markets in your program have reduced capacity or actually have non-renewed, and that impacts your pricing on the program. The other area is that insurance carriers are looking at aggregation exposures. That unfortunate incident, Norfolk Southern incident derailment loss in East Palestine, Ohio, impacted the industry not only for the insurance carriers on Norfolk Southern, but also on those that had materials in the cars. So pollutions, pollutants, all the losses. So those same insurance carriers were getting basically an aggregation of losses. So they had not just Norfolk Southern, but also their other clients impacted. The good news is that as the team has stated here, DCRTA has actually historically been considered a preferred account based on all the efforts that Dr. Kaver had communicated in terms of using the Lytix drive cam, the cameras, the behavior modification, and the data that Judy had demonstrated. The insurance carriers do really appreciate that. They also appreciate the presentations, the underwriting meetings, the time that they clearly communicate how well the agency is doing. Your program is structured with 15 different insurance carriers in the U.S., London, and Bermuda. So that is a very, very intelligent, smart structure in the fact that it reduces the amount of risk that any one carrier has in the program. So it is actually a very well-balanced program.
Oh, that's you. Okay, thank you very much, Barb. So we move now to the results of the renewal negotiations. So for the excess liability program, which is by far the largest, the expiring premium is $1,785,783. The renewal premium is $1,877,664, which is a 5% increase, which we consider a great victory because, as Barb explained, the market is experiencing some very difficult losses and claims issues and cutting back capacity. So we were told to expect an increase of a minimum of 7.5% back in July when we had our strategy meeting for this renewal. So we're very pleased with the 5% result. It is a result of our lead underwriter that we talked about, Aegis, who we have a very long-term relationship with, and they came out with a 5%. And then you try to maintain that as you go up the tower with the other carriers. And we didn't think we could do it, but we did it. So we got the 5% across the board on that program, and our broker tells us that we are still priced below most of our peers. We did budget for a 10% increase, so we do have a significant savings against budget. And as has been mentioned, it's a quota share program with domestic, London, and Bermuda markets, 15, I think Barb said. I was asked to give a description of what a quota share program looks like to try to help you understand how it. So if you picture a stack of blocks, the bottom block is our $5 million self-insured retention. So we've got no coverage for any loss within that $5 million layer. And happily, we've never pierced that layer, which makes all the insurance companies very happy. So the second block is a $20 million layer of coverage, and there are several insurance companies that share that layer. The third block is a $30 million coverage layer. Again, a number of insurance companies share that layer. And the top block is a $45 million coverage layer, getting us up to the $95 million on top of our self-insured retention. And so there are a number of insurance companies taking this percent and that percent of each layer. And obviously, the premium on the bottom, the first $20 million layer, is the biggest premium because they're at the most risk for paying a loss, and it gets cheaper as you go up the tower. So I hope that was helpful. That's what I was asked to describe. Moving on to public officials and employment practices and those results, we are going to be renewing with our incumbent carrier, who is AIG. National Union is the name of the actual insurance carrier. AIG is a group. The expiring premium is $100,900. The renewal premium is $104,000, which is a 3% increase. Very happy with that. We budgeted for a 5% increase in accordance with USI's experience with our other public entity accounts. This is actually a very difficult line of coverage for public entity accounts. There are not a lot of carriers that will write this at all for public entities. So we're fortunate to have a strong carrier in AIG. And lastly, the excess workers' compensation renewal results. We did do a limited marketing effort and generated a little bit of competition among markets. So we were able to maintain our expiring rate on this renewal, which is fantastic. So what we have is the projected payroll that we gave them was 4.4% higher than last year's projected payroll. So with a flat rate, obviously that translates straight through to a 4.4% premium increase. So our new premium is $287,527 versus $275,355 last year, an increase of $12,172 or 4.4%. Much better than what we budgeted which was a 13% increase. And in a minute, I will give you the combined result, which is for all three insurance policies, the renewal premium is $2,269,191 versus the expiring premiums of $2,162,038, an increase of 4.5% for all three, and $102,411 under budget, which is 4.3%. The staff requests that the Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the purchase of casualty insurance from various insurance underwriters through USI Insurance Services National, Inc., our GCRT's casualty insurance broker, in a total amount not to exceed $2,269,191 for a period of 12 months. And I will take any questions.
Any questions from the committee or the full board?
I just have one question. Just curious, what contributed to the increases in the premiums, the 3% and 5% on the premiums?
The 5% on the excess liability, I think Barb's explanation about what was going on in the marketplace.
Okay.
And the fact that the carriers across the board, not just in our industry, but across the board everywhere, were not prepared for the aggregation of losses that they had accepted.
Okay.
And so they were looking for price increases much higher than what they gave us. So I think that explains the major increase, the 5%.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, say, job well done. I know it's extremely difficult to try to budget these kinds of numbers when they're moving so quickly.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, great results.
Yeah.
So thank you for
so
your
much.
efforts.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this work. I'm very grateful to serve alongside Doc on the COC committee, and thankfully to be working alongside folks with RTA and not have any incidents. I just was wondering or curious if we did have an incident with our officers, does that fall under the PO, EPL liability, or would that be something different where we would need to?
If we had
An incident with our civilian oversight committee, or with our officers, with our transit officers, and
police,
we needed to,
with
yes,
the transit police?
yes,
Oh, yeah, no, that would not
be
fall within the
under
public
any of
officials.
these. Okay,
No, it would. Actually, there is coverage under the main excess liability program with the $5 million self-insured retention, the one that I described, the tower. There is coverage in there for law enforcement liability. It isn't called out per se, but it is not excluded. We have negotiated some wording in there that allows it to apply to those types of losses. So obviously with a $5 million self-insured retention, it would have to be a heck of a loss for us to really get into the insurance coverage, but the coverage is in that program.
thank you so much.
Sure.
Reverend Lucas?
President Abe Lincoln was one of the most revered presidents in U.S. history. The Lincoln car is one of the best riding cars. I bought 3 of them. And Judy Lincoln is one of the best insurance agents
Oh my gosh.
in the country.
Wow, thank you, goodness. I was wondering where we were going with that. Okay. Thank you very much, Reverend Lucas.
Does any board member want to try and follow up on that?
Yeah. I'm thinking not.
Okay. I will make the motion that was presented by Ms. Lincoln on that. Is there a second?
Second. Mayor Weiss?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move it to the full board. Thank you so much for the presentation. Is there any old business or new business before this committee? Okay. If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion Welch.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion, committee is adjourned. We have one item that was added under Committee of the Whole. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole. Roll call, please, Teresa.
Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Ms. Welch,
Here.
Mayor Biassiata.
Here.
Ms. Elder, Mr. Love,
Here.
Reverend Lucas. Ms. McPherson, Ms. Pachetti.
Here.
Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
And Mayor Weiss.
Here.
You have 9 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Great. There's an executive session requested to consider the purchase, sale, and other disposition of public property. I will make that motion. Is there a second?
Second Welch.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kumar.
Yes.
Ms. Welch.
Yes.
Mayor Biassiata.
Yes.
Ms. Elder.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Yes.
Reverend Lucas. Ms. Pachetti.
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman.
Yes.
And Mayor Weiss.
Yes.
You have 9 ayes and none opposed.
Great. We're going to adjourn to the committee room for our executive session. When we come out, I am going to adjourn the session. We won't be conducting any more business. You're welcome to stay for that and watch me gavel the meeting to a close, but if you've got other things to do, there won't be any other business.
To the chair from legal counsel, there was a request to read the reason. Did we read the reason for the executive session?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was read.
Okay, thank you.
Just to support the notification by our chair, if we could retain the following staff members for the executive session.
Okay, thanks.
Great. I'd like to thank Teresa and Tony for hanging around. Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Mayor Kumar?
Yes.
Ms. Welch?
Yes.
Mayor Biassiata?
Yes.
Ms. Elder?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Reverend Lucas? Ms. Pachetti?
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman?
Yes.
And Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
You have 9 ayes and none opposed.
Great. I'm going to make a motion to end the committee of the whole. Second.
Second Welch.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?